6 months after the massacre at New Sol Colony, Emperor Vorthok sat in his massive throne room, watching through the huge windows as human warships filled the skies above his homeworld. The ships were so numerous that they blocked out the light from the system's 3 suns and cast the Imperial Palace into permanent shadow. The mighty Vorthan Empire that had conquered 17 different alien species over 3 centuries was now facing complete destruction. The Emperor, who had ruled with absolute power for 50 years, found himself powerless against the human forces that surrounded his planet. Admiral Ru Songmin was 46 years old and had been chosen personally by President Park Min-ho to deliver the final ultimatum to the Vorthon leadership. His voice echoed through every communication system on the planet as he spoke with the cold authority of someone who held the power of life and death. The Admiral listed the charges against Emperor Vorthok and his government: genocide against human civilians, unprovoked warfare against peaceful colonies, mass murder of innocents. The crimes were read out slowly and clearly so that every person on the planet could understand exactly why their empire was about to be destroyed. Emperor's council chamber erupted in panicked discussion as his advisors tried to find some way to escape the situation they had created. General Thekman had been the architect of countless military victories during his 30-year career. He had planned the attacks that had conquered entire star systems, but now the general found his voice breaking as he reported their military situation to the Emperor. There were no ships left to fight, with no weapons capable of penetrating human defenses, no allies willing to come to their aid. Everything they had built over 300 years had been systematically destroyed. The Emperor looked out at the human fleet and tried to understand how this had happened. 6 months ago, the Vorthan Empire had been the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They had controlled hundreds of star systems and commanded millions of soldiers. Now they had nothing. The human attack had been so thorough and so devastating that the Vorthan military had simply ceased to exist. Their fleets were destroyed, their bases were captured, and their commanders were dead or in prison. What broke the Vorthan spirit was not just the military defeat, but the realization of what humanity represented. Other alien species fought wars for territory or resources or political advantage, but humans fought for something much more dangerous. They fought for their families. The difference between fighting for conquest and fighting for survival made humans unstoppable. When the Vorthan attacked other species, those species had something to lose. They could surrender and hope to negotiate favorable terms, or retreat and rebuild their strength elsewhere, but humans had no interest in negotiation or retreat. When their families were threatened, they became something that the galaxy had never seen before. They became predators who would hunt their enemies across space and time until every threat was eliminated. President Park Min-ho broadcast his message to the Vorthan people from his office on Earth. His words were translated into every Vorthan language and broadcast on every communication channel on their homeworld. The message was simple and final. The president explained that Vorthan leaders had chosen to murder 12,000 innocent humans, including women and children who had never threatened anyone. The attack had been unprovoked and brutal and designed to terrorize humanity into abandoning their colonies. But the aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had believed that humans would accept this atrocity in silence. They had thought that humans were weak and would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They had been completely wrong about human nature. The terms of surrender were absolute and non-negotiable. The Vorthan Empire would be completely dismantled and its military permanently disbanded. The government would be dissolved and new leadership would be chosen under human supervision. Vorthan military leaders who had participated in the attack on New Sol Colony would be tried for war crimes. The trials would be public and broadcast throughout the galaxy so that other species could see what happened to those who murdered human families. Would be paid to human colonies for the next 100 years. The Vorthan people would work to rebuild what their empire had destroyed, and to compensate the families of those who had been killed. Their children and grandchildren would grow up knowing the cost of attacking innocent people. Most importantly, the galaxy would remember forever what had happened when the Vorthan Empire made the mistake of awakening humanity's protective instincts. The story would be told on every world and in every language so that no other species would make the same error. In the ruins of New Sol Colony, Captain Hong Subin led a memorial service for the 12,000 people who had died in the attack. She was 29 years old and had lost her own brother in the bombardment. She had volunteered for the most dangerous missions during the war, seeking revenge for his death. The memorial site was built where the colony center had once stood. A simple monument listed the names of every person who had died, men, women, and children whose only crime had been wanting to build a better life among the stars. Captain Hong placed flowers on the monument as she spoke words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. She said that the aliens had tried to break humanity's spirit by murdering their families, but instead of breaking them, the attack had revealed what humans truly were. She explained that humans were not the peaceful explorers they had pretended to be when they joined the Galactic Council. They were Earth's children, descendants of the most successful predators their planet had ever produced. When their families were threatened, they became something that nothing in the galaxy could stop. The captain said that humans did not distinguish between military threats and personal threats. Anyone who harmed their families would be hunted across the galaxy until nothing remained. This was not a boast or a threat. It was simply a statement of fact about human nature. The Galactic Council met in emergency session to revise their threat assessment protocols. The attack on New Sol colony and humanity's response had changed everything they thought they knew about warfare and diplomacy in their galaxy. A new classification was added to their database that would be used to evaluate any future conflicts involving human interests. The classification was simple and clear. Never attack human civilians. Humanity does not distinguish between military and personal threats. Warning: continued harm their families and they will hunt you across the galaxy until nothing remains. This is not negotiable and this is not subject to diplomatic resolution. This is simply how humans respond to threats against their children. Database entry concluded with a final note that would be studied by alien military leaders for generations. The greatest mistake any species can make is to assume that humans are motivated by the same things that motivate other civilizations. Do not fight for territory or resources or political advantage. They fight for their families and their future. When those things are threatened, they will become monsters to protect them. This transformation is not temporary, it is permanent. The war had taught the galaxy a lesson that would never be forgotten. Humanity had revealed their true nature and shown that beneath their civilized appearance, they remained the apex predators that had dominated their homeworld. The galaxy would never be the same again. Every alien species now knew that there were consequences for attacking human families. The beasts had been awakened, and they had shown that they would protect their own no matter what the cost. Peace returned to human space, but it was a different kind of peace than before. It was the peace that came from strength and from the knowledge that any species that threatened human families would face the same fate as the Orcs Empire. The stars belonged to humanity now, not through conquest but through the demonstration that they were willing to fight harder and longer than anyone else to protect what they loved. The galaxy had learned to respect and fear the sleeping giants who called themselves human. Ambassador Lee stood in the big white room of the Galactic Council. His face showed no feelings as he spoke the words that would change everything. The huge hall was built to hold hundreds of different alien beings from across the galaxy. Now it was very quiet as his words came through the machines that changed his language into theirs. The Human Federation stops all talks with the galaxy right now. Lee said. His voice was calm even though what he was saying was very big around him. Aliens from many worlds moved in their special chairs. They looked worried. This problem had been growing for a long time. Humans joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. They were the newest people to learn how to travel faster than light at first. The aliens were happy to have them, but humans quickly became very useful. Other alien people had learned to do one thing very well over thousands of years, but humans could learn many different things at the same time. Kim changed how doctors worked. He mixed special healing stones from the Altarian world with human ways of doing surgery. Engineer Park fixed the big energy problem that the vegan empire had. He took human power machines and made them work in their strange air. Captain Song helped the peaceful Deltan people learn how to fight back against space pirates. This ended a war that had gone on for 100 years, but the thanks slowly turned into using humans badly. The council started treating humans like they were workers who could fix anything. They gave humans more and more dangerous jobs, while other aliens got all the good things. When humans asked for a special seat on the big ruling group, they said no. When humans wanted fair trade deals, they ignored them. When humans complained about being used like tools that could be thrown away, they did not listen. The last bad thing happened when the council told humans they had to give away their newest discovery about quantum computers. They said it was for the good of all galaxy people. Captain Han, who spoke for Earth military, said no. The council said they would punish humans, stop trade with them, and even fight them with weapons. That was when humans decided to do something that would shock the whole galaxy. Lee kept talking. All human workers and machines and services will stop working for non-human people. All human people living in galaxy areas must come home. He put a small computer pad on the table in the middle. This has the places where human people and equipment are. You have 72 hours to find other ways to do things. The big boss of the Galactic Council was a tall crystal being named Vel. He sent out waves that showed he could not believe what he heard. Ambassador Lee, you cannot mean this. The galaxy needs human new ideas. And Skillsley smiled, but it was a cold smile. Maybe the galaxy should have thought about that before treating us like servants who could be thrown away. He turned and walked to the door. His feet making noise were the only sound in the big room. When the doors closed behind him, everyone started yelling. Many aliens began arguing in different languages. Emergency meetings were called for the first time ever in galaxy history. One group of people had chosen to cut all ties with everyone else. What the aliens did not know was that humans had been getting ready for this day for years. Secret places had been built in parts of space that no one knew about. Human colonies had been quietly saving up supplies. Most important, Dr. Yoon had made a new way for humans to talk to each other faster than light that did not need galaxy networks. In just a few hours, humans started leaving. Human engineers left half-finished projects where they were making new worlds. Human doctors walked out of alien hospitals. Human teachers left galaxy schools. Human traders turned off their space stations and started going home. The galaxy did not know yet how much they had been taking humans for granted. Back on the human worlds, Captain Song was getting ready. She had been waiting for this day for 3 years. Her job was to make sure all humans in the Outer Rim got home safely. She looked at her list. There were human scientists on 43 different worlds, human engineers working on 21 big projects, human doctors in 67 alien hospitals. This is big, she said to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Park. We have people everywhere. Yes, Captain Park replied, but we planned for this. Every human knows what to do when the recall signal comes on the trade station. New Horizon engineer Cho was shutting down the fusion reactor he had built. The alien workers watched him with big eyes, not understanding what was happening. What are you doing? COJ, the station chief, asked. This reactor powers the whole station. I am going home, Cho said simply. The reactor will work for maybe 2 more days, then you will need to figure out how to run it yourselves, but we do not know how, the chief said, his voice full of fear. You should have learned, Seo replied as he packed his tools. Similar things were happening all across the galaxy. Dr. Min was the only doctor who could treat the strange sickness that jumped between different alien species. She was packing her medical equipment while alien doctors begged her to stay. Please, Dr. Min, the head alien doctor said, we need you. The sickness will spread without your help. Darmin stopped packing for a moment. I have been asking for help to teach you my methods for 5 years. You always said you were too busy. Now you must learn the hard way. On the farming world of Delta 7, agricultural expert Kim was watching alien farmers panic as he prepared to leave. His new growing methods had tripled their food production. You cannot leave us, Kim, they cried. Our people will starve. Kim felt sad, but he had made his choice. I offered to teach you everything I know. You said human methods were not important. You wanted results, not knowledge. Now you have neither. The recall was happening faster than anyone thought possible. Human ships appeared at every human outpost. Families packed quickly, taking only what they could carry. Equipment that could not be moved was shut down or destroyed so aliens could not copy it on Earth. President Park watched reports coming in from across the galaxy. Every human was following the plan perfectly. In 72 hours, there would be no humans left in alien space except for a few volunteers who would stay to help with emergencies. Are you sure about this, President Park? Her advisor asked. This will hurt a lot of innocent aliens. President Park nodded slowly. We tried being helpful for 50 years. They used us like tools. When we asked for respect, they laughed at us. When we asked for fair treatment, they ignored us. Sometimes you have to walk away to show people what they are losing. The galaxy communication networks were full of panic messages. Alien leaders were calling emergency meetings. They were trying to contact Earth, but all human communication channels had gone quiet. In the crystal world of Altus Prime, Speaker Vel was meeting with his top advisors. The humans have gone crazy, he said. How can they just leave? Maybe they are not crazy, his oldest advisor said quietly. Maybe we pushed them too far. Do not be silly, Vel replied. Humans need us as much as we need them. Where will they go? What will they do? His advisor looked at the star charts showing human colony locations. There are many human settlements in unexplored space, he said slowly. Maybe they do not need us as much as we thought. The 72 hours passed quickly. When it ended, there were no humans left in alien-controlled space. For the first time in 50 years, the galaxy had to solve its own problems, and they were about to learn just how hard that would be. 3 days after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy began to understand the scope of their dependency. On the trading station Kepler 7, formerly managed by Engineer Cho, 3 different species were engaged in heated arguments over basic maintenance protocols. The station's fusion reactors, modified by human ingenuity to run on multiple fuel types, began showing warning signs that none of the remaining technicians could interpret. Dr. Shin had been the only medical professional capable of treating cross-species infections on the Outer Rim colony of New Arcturus. Without her, a simple viral outbreak among the Xyrillian workers threatened to become a pandemic. The local Xyrillian doctors, highly skilled in their own physiology, found themselves helpless when facing pathogens that jumped between species. The situation grew worse by the hour. Captain Zhang had been coordinating supply runs through the dangerous Maelstrom Nebula, using techniques he'd developed to navigate the chaotic electromagnetic storms. With him gone, 3 cargo ships were already stranded, their crews sending increasingly desperate distress calls. On the industrial world of Gamma 5, the massive mining operation ground to a halt. Human supervisor Wong had been the only one who understood the complex integration between Terran drilling equipment and Altarian processing systems. Without his expertise, the facility that supplied rare minerals to half the galaxy sat idle. Galactic Council convened emergency sessions around the clock. Prime Speaker Vel's crystalline form flickered with stress patterns as reports flooded in from across known space. The vegan empire's energy grid, stabilized by human modifications, was experiencing rolling blackouts. The Deltan Defense Network, designed with human tactical input, couldn't respond effectively to a renewed pirate threat. How did we become so dependent on a single species? Demanded Councillor Vex, his forearms gesticulating wildly. We've survived for millennia without human interference, because they solved problems we couldn't solve ourselves, admitted Councillor Zara, her tentacles drooping with exhaustion. They didn't just provide solutions, they provided better solutions than we ever imagined. The economic implications were staggering. Human-designed translation protocols had made inter-species trade seamless. Human-developed agricultural techniques had ended food shortages on dozens of worlds. Human diplomatic innovations had resolved conflicts that had raged for centuries. Professor An had single-handedly redesigned the galactic internet infrastructure, making communication between distant worlds nearly instantaneous. Without the maintenance protocols only she understood, the network began experiencing delays that disrupted everything from banking to emergency services. Most critically, Dr. Kong had been leading the galaxy's defense research, developing new technologies to counter emerging threats from unexplored regions of space. Intelligence reports suggested hostile activity in the Outer Rim, but without human military expertise, the Council's response capabilities were severely limited. Emergency measures were implemented. The Council offered massive financial incentives for humans to return. They promised technology sharing agreements, cultural exchange programs, and even offered to create a new category of essential species status. But Earth's response was silence. Ambassador Lee had already returned to the space, and all communication channels with Earth remained closed. Human colonies throughout the galaxy had gone dark, their inhabitants presumably evacuated to unknown locations. The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson about the difference between cooperation and dependence. For 50 years, they had relied on human innovation to solve their problems. Now, faced with those same problems without human solutions, they realized just how far behind they had fallen in technological and strategic development. Panic was setting in, and humanity was nowhere to be found. 2 weeks after the human withdrawal, the Galactic Council made an unprecedented decision. They would send search expeditions to locate human colonies and negotiate their return. What they discovered would change their understanding of humanity forever. Captain Valnine, leading a joint fleet of council ships, arrived at the coordinates of New Sol, a human colony that had been established 30 years earlier. Instead of the modest settlement mentioned in galactic records, they found a massive space station surrounded by defensive platforms that made even military installations look primitive. "This is impossible," muttered Navigator Kix as his sensors registered the station's specifications. "According to our records, New Sol had a population of 50,000. This facility could house millions." The defensive platforms tracked their movement with disturbing precision, but made no aggressive moves. When Captain Valnine attempted to establish communication, he was greeted by Colonel Lim's calm voice. "Galactic Council vessels, you are approaching restricted human space. State your business." "Colonel, we come seeking dialogue with human representatives regarding your species' return to galactic society," Valnine replied, his translator struggling with diplomatic protocols it hadn't used in decades. Lim's response was swift and final. "The Human Federation has no interest in galactic society. You have 10 minutes to leave our territory before defensive measures are activated." Similar encounters occurred throughout human space. The colony of New Busan had transformed into a military fortress. New Daegu had become a massive research facility with technology that made Council science look centuries out of date. Most shocking of all, New Busan had evolved into a trade hub serving species the Council had never encountered. Dr. Ru, the expedition xenobiologist, made a disturbing discovery while analyzing sensor data. "Captain, I'm detecting at least 12 different species' technological signatures around these human installations, but none of them match any known galactic civilizations." The implications were staggering. While humanity had been publicly cooperating with the Galactic Council, they had been secretly establishing relationships with unknown species from unexplored regions of space. The technology they had shared with the Council was apparently just a fraction of their actual capabilities. Intelligence Officer Tan uncovered even more troubling information. Human colonies weren't just defending themselves, they were expanding. Construction of new installations was proceeding at an impossible pace, suggesting access to resources and manufacturing capabilities far beyond what the Council had imagined. Most disturbing of all was the discovery that human space now extended far beyond charted territory. Captain Essio commanded patrol fleets that covered regions the Council didn't even know existed. Admiral Bay oversaw defensive networks that protected human interests across multiple sectors. The search expeditions returned with a sobering realization. Humanity hadn't just left galactic society, they had graduated from it. While the Council had been treating them as junior partners, humans had been building an independent civilization that dwarfed anything in known space. Emergency sessions of the Council grew increasingly desperate. Economic projections showed that without human expertise, several major systems would face complete collapse within months. The Altarian Confederation was already experiencing civil unrest as their human-designed transportation network failed. The Xerillian Empire's agricultural output had dropped by 60% without human farming innovations. But humanity's message remained unchanged. General Park, speaking from an undisclosed location, delivered a brief transmission that was BROADCAST across galactic networks. The Human Federation exists independently of galactic politics. We have no hostile intentions toward any species, but we will no longer serve as the galaxy's emergency response service. Each species must solve their own problems. The transmission ended with coordinates not for human space, but for a neutral, the zone where humanitarian supplies would be delivered for species facing genuine crises. It was a gesture of goodwill, but also a clear demonstration that humanity now operated from a position of strength. The galaxy was beginning to understand that they hadn't just lost a useful ally, they had lost their most capable species to their own arrogance and exploitation. 1 month after humanity's departure, the galactic economy teetered on the edge of collapse. What had started as inconvenience had evolved into a full-scale crisis that threatened the stability of every major civilization. The Altarian medical crisis had reached catastrophic proportions. Without Dr. Min's revolutionary treatment protocols, a simple respiratory infection was spreading unchecked through their crystal-based physiology. Millions faced death from a condition that had been easily treatable just weeks earlier. Prime Speaker Vel convened another emergency session, his crystalline form now showing stress fractures that indicated severe psychological strain. The situation has become untenable. We must swallow our pride and meet humanity's demands. What demands? Demanded Counselor X. They haven't made any demands, they simply left. That was precisely the problem. Humanity hadn't presented a list of grievances or negotiation points. They had simply withdrawn completely, leaving the galaxy to face the consequences of their own dependence. Intelligence reports revealed the true scope of the crisis. The vegan empire's energy infrastructure was failing at an accelerating rate. Without engineer-use maintenance protocols, their solar collection arrays were becoming increasingly inefficient. Rolling blackouts had become permanent in several sectors. The transportation crisis was equally severe. Captain Hong had designed the hyperspace route optimization systems used by commercial shipping throughout the galaxy. Without those systems, cargo delivery times had tripled, and several routes had become completely unusable due to navigational hazards. Most critically, the galaxy's defensive capabilities had degraded to pre-human levels. Admiral One had been instrumental in developing the integrated defense networks that protected major trade routes from piracy and external threats. Without human strategic expertise, pirate activity had increased by 300%. Dr. Beek's agricultural innovations had been feeding billions across multiple worlds. Her techniques for adapting Earth crops to alien environments had prevented famines on 17 different planets. Now food shortages were becoming widespread as traditional farming methods proved inadequate. The Council's attempts to reverse engineer human technologies were meeting with complete failure. Human innovations weren't just advanced, they were integrated in ways that other species couldn't comprehend. Every human solution seemed to solve multiple problems simultaneously, creating efficiencies that single-focus alien thinking couldn't replicate. Professor O's educational reforms had transformed learning throughout the galaxy. His methods for teaching complex concepts across species barriers had produced the most educated generation in galactic history. Without those techniques, the knowledge transfer necessary to maintain human-built systems was proving impossible. Desperate measures were implemented. The Council offered to grant humanity whatever they wanted: permanent seats on all governing bodies, exclusive trade agreements, even territorial concessions. They promised to treat humans as equals rather than problem solvers. But Earth remained silent. In a final act of desperation, the Council decided to send their most respected diplomat, Elder Zin of the ancient Keeper species. The Keepers were legendary for their wisdom and neutrality, respected by every species in known space. If anyone could negotiate humanity's return, it would be Elder Zin. The diplomatic mission launched with great fanfare, carrying representatives from every major civilization. They brought offerings of technology, art, and cultural treasures. They carried formal apologies and promises of equal treatment. When they reached the edge of human space, they were met by a single human vessel. Commander Kim's voice was professional but firm. Elder Zin, the Human Federation appreciates the Council's gesture, but our position remains unchanged. We have evolved beyond the need for galactic society's approval or participation. Commander, Elder Zin's ancient voice carried centuries of diplomatic experience. Surely we can find common ground. The galaxy is suffering without human expertise. Kim's response was gentle but devastating. Elder Zin, humanity spent 50 years solving everyone else's problems while our own needs were ignored. We have now solved our own problems. The galaxy must learn to do the same. The diplomatic mission returned empty-handed, carrying news that would send shockwaves through galactic civilization. Humanity didn't want anything from the galaxy. They had moved beyond needing galactic resources, galactic markets, or galactic approval. The Council faced an unprecedented situation. A species had successfully graduated from galactic civilization and found it wanting.